All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the November 14th regular meeting of Kimberley City Council. I would like to call this meeting to order, held here on the homelands of the Ktunaxa peoples. Maurice, do we have any late agenda items?
There is no late agenda items, Mr. Mayor.
All right, hearing none, could I have a mover to accept the agenda? Thank you, Councillor Royer and Councillor Karen seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Next up, we have the adoption of the council of the minutes, of the special meeting of council held on October the 16th. Councillor Roberts moves and Councillor McBain seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. All right, awesome. The formalities are out of the way. First up tonight, we have our quarterly visit from Sergeant Woodcox. Steve, you're up.
Thank you. So this is the second quarter report for fiscal year 23-24, encompassing the months of July to September 2023. The calls for service were about the same as they were from same period last year. 14 reports were forwarded to Crown Council for charge approval. Property crime, which was one of our main objectives this year, has drastically reduced, so we're happy to see that. Again, I think it's because we had 3 chronic offenders that were targeted in this community. All 3 were in custody. A few weeks ago, 1 pled guilty to numerous charges and was sentenced to a couple more years in jail. The other 2 are presently in custody too. So our numbers for that have gone down dramatically. And I'd like to thank the members in Kimberley and Cranbrook. Both jurisdictions had the same issues with the same individuals. Because of that, numerous charges were put in, and at the end of the day, those gentlemen were kept in custody. So it's drastically reduced what we were dealing with in the fall of last year. So that's a happy thing, a happy moment for the community. I just want to touch on July Fest. I know I've talked about that before, but since this did happen during this quarter, there was a few incidents. There was somebody arrested for an assault. There was another person arrested in a stolen vehicle that was was actually stolen out of Northwest Territories. So that individual was arrested. There was an individual arrested for an assault. The rest of the weekend was people were quite well behaved. There was nothing in particular, especially when you get so many people together. The chances of something major happening are big, and I always like to thank the people at Kimberley. Everyone puts on a good event. Everything is very well maintained at the event, and everything went smoothly. So just thank you again to people who put on the event. Some files of interest. Sometimes I don't always talk about this, but I just wanted to bring up some files that happened over the summer. July, there was a fatal car accident up in the White Swan area. So unfortunately, it resulted in the death of a 22-year-old male from Alberta. There was nothing criminal in that investigation, but that was one of the events that happened. Another event to get some media attention, there was a 3-year-old child that was found floating in Wassa Lake, and it's due to the fact that there was 2 gentlemen there, one from Cranbrook, one from Kimberley, that took action and saved that child's life. I can report I've talked to one of those gentlemen recently. The 3-year-old made a full recovery, and those gentlemen have actually had the pleasure of bringing their children to play with this child. So it's a good event, something positive for once. I did present both of those gentlemen with certificates at the detachment, because without them, that child would not be alive today. So that's a very good thing, and those gentlemen deserve to be recognized, and they were. So one other incident happened in September. We got a report from someone in the public, suspicious activity in the Wassa area. So this event resulted in the arrest of 3 individuals who had unlawfully confined a male at the residence. We believe that to be drug related. All 3 males were arrested. There was a warrant executed at the residence. Several firearms were located. One of the males was held in custody, facing numerous charges. He was released the following day by the court. So Another thing I want to speak of, I know I've talked to council before about this, and it's about youth. That's one of the areas, again, we wanted to spend some time on. I've been invited, and we've began holding a high-risk youth committee that was initiated by probation officer in Cranbrook. Again, because we see some instances of children in high-risk lifestyles. So with probation, out of ministry, Tanaha, and some local teachers and principals, we're meeting regularly to kind of identify those youth that are in trouble and try to get the resources to them. I think it's something that's very positive, and something I think we need to spend more time on. I think our children are just getting, there's a lot of things going on in the world, and a lot of dangers and a lot of kids out there that need support. So that's one way to at least identify some of the people and try to get the resources to them when needed. So, and as usual, anyone has any questions, I'm more than willing to take any questions you have.
Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Steve, uh, any of these young people that have issues in Kimberley have any ability to participate in with the Foundry? Like, is that any help at all to Kimberley?
Yeah, I mean, some of these kids, and when we say issues, the issues that we see are kids that are sometimes isolated, and whether it's because of bullying, whether it's become issues at home, or drug addiction or mental health. Those are the things that are kind of putting some of these children at risk. And they're sometimes associating with people from town and from out of town that are involved in the high risk lifestyle. So yeah, any help is helpful. That's why this high risk community, what we're trying to do is when we do have someone that we know is having issues, how do we get, or who do we get to come and kind of be involved in this child's life to offer support, and try to get them help. But yeah, any help, I think, at this point in some of these kids' life, and it's who they trust too. So that's why a lot of these people, whether it's a probation officer, whether it's a teacher or principal, whether it's a police officer, sometimes those connections help, and you're able to talk to that child or that youth and try to get them help. Right? You're welcome.
Further, council. I have one question, Steve, and that has to do with the stats around vehicles and traffic. So is that number reflective that summertime there's just a lot more activity, or is it more focus, given to the number of folks that are being stopped, or kind of what's the dynamic?
No, I think with the summer comes a busy traffic season, and I think people become more impatient, drive more erratically, and I think just the volume of traffic causes more vehicle incidents. There's more people out in the summer on the road. There's more people out at night. Traffic is sometimes busier. People are impatient, drive a little bit more erratically or more aggressive, and that leads to more complaints.
The summertime effect.
Summer effect. Yes, sir.
All right, last call. Thanks very much, Steve. Really
Thank
appreciate you coming in to do this.
Appreciate
Great
your time.
report, as always. All right, next up, we have the zoning amendment bylaw for 1400 Ross Road. And the motion on the floor is that council adopt bylaw 2721, amendment 157 for this particular property. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Royer moves and Councillor McBain seconds. Anything further on this one? It's for adoption, so we've talked about it a few times. Troy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe just as a bit of a brief refresher, because it has been a while since council did look at this one. This one has been sitting at third reading for quite some time, just waiting on the applicant to complete some requirements, conditions of approval from Ministry of Transportation. We received word that those requirements have been met, and that was to register a couple of covenants on title relating to just making sure that the ministry has a chance to review and approve future plans moving forward on the property and the development of that property around stormwater management and access, largely secondary access to from the property. Um, those those requirements have been satisfied. Actually, they were completed. We found out as far back as in June, so it's going to come forward a little bit sooner. But we just found out about this recently. This doesn't adoption of the zoning amendment doesn't in any way give approval for next stages of development. Those will be reviewed under subdivision and development permit applications. And we'll await those applications if council adopts tonight.
All right, excellent. Thanks,
You
Troy.
bet.
Council, any questions, comments? Councillor McGuire, go ahead.
I was just curious if there was any update on where the developer is at with moving forward with this project, if we're going to see this in the next couple of years or.
Nothing concrete at this time, but certainly wouldn't surprise me to see at least some form of application in the next couple of years.
Thanks, Councillor. Go ahead, Kevin.
So this is on the hillside in Meadowbrook, correct?
Yeah, it's hillside
Like-
above Summer Sub, above Morrison Sub.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm looking at
yeah,
it.
end of Ross Pearson Road.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
this is
I'm
the
looking at
headwaters development.
Looking at it backwards. Thanks for the
Yeah.
clarification.
Okay, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Next up, we have a development variance permit for 249 Stemwinder Drive. And the motion on the floor is the council instruct the corporate officer to issue a notice to neighbors of the intent to vary. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Cairns, thank you. Councillor Royer seconds. Go ahead, Troy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a application for 249 Stemwinder Drive. The property owners and residents there are constructing accessory building in the rear yard, close to the fence, a little closer to the side and rear fence than what's required by the bylaw. So they're looking to relax the rear yard setback from the required 3 meters down to 1 meter, and the side yard setback from the required 3 meters down to 2 meters. There's some plans and photographs attached to the staff report there. This, again, we're recommending that council approve this recommendation here to give notice to neighbors and see if there's any feedback received from them. However, staff feels that although there's a fair bit of space available in the backyard there, the applicant has made some good points here about wanting to kind of maximize yard space there, and this helps to actually retain some trees that are in the backyard and kind of visually screen this accessory building from the subject home and the adjacent homes as well. So makes some sense that this has been proposed or proceeding this way. So they have actually started this work already. We discovered that and issued a stop work until that variance application was submitted there. So if council supports this, we'll proceed to give notice and probably come back to one of the next meetings here with that.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Troy. Council, questions or comments? Councillor Royer, go ahead.
Troy, I got a couple of concerns here. One is, this particular shed, there's a few other people that do the same thing and they don't get the stop order. So what's going on? What am I missing here? Because I know there's been some people that just make things, build things and they don't get permits or nothing. Help me out here, please.
Yeah, I mean, whenever we're made aware of construction underway without a permit, then that's usually our first step as a stop work order. In some cases, it might be determined that the shed is under 10 square meters in area and doesn't require a building permit. But in many cases, it's even though it might not require a building permit, it's still required to meet the setbacks, minimum setbacks from property line that's set out in the zoning bylaw. In this particular neighborhood, they're fairly large setbacks at 3 meters for accessory building. In most areas of town, it's 1.5 meters, so half of that. So So sometimes, we might have a complaint about construction of a structure like this, but then find out that it does comply with the setbacks and they obtain a permit or maybe determine not to need a permit, whatever the case may be. But
Thank you.
Further? All right, call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. All right, next up, we have the Animal Control and Bylaw Enforcement, the second quarter and third quarter reports. 6 months, Sean. You've been a busy man. Take it away.
Mayor, Council. So I've just got the reports here for our second and third quarters for the bylaw and animal control enforcement statistics there. Not going to bore you by reading off of them. You've all got them in front of you there. I think our key takeaways here are found in our comparison for calls of service. And over both quarters, we're down about 100 calls for second and third quarter. So 200 total. And those are primarily in the areas of the animal control section, water shortage section, and the solid waste complaints. And I think that's a combination of enforcement and education. And over that 12-month period, this is our first one, second quarter here, where we can see a comparison from when I first started in April of 2022 till the period of April 2023. So that's that first 12-month window there. And so what that's showing is that the residents are paying more attention to the requirements of the bylaw in regards to ensuring that their dog is on leash, ensuring that they have a license, making sure that their garbage is secured from wildlife. A big one for our summer period, which is in the third quarter section here, is our water shortage response bylaw, and that call volume is down. Here I've got the statistics down 60% over the year. So people are paying more attention to the bylaws in general and making sure that they're compliant. And so as a result, the number of fines, the number of warnings, number of complaints generated by the public in those areas are down over this 12-month window. But what that means is that I've got more time to focus on the complaints that we have, which are taking more time to deal with. There are a number of issues in town that are quite detailed, which need a bit more focus. And so having that time available to do so is allowing us to move forwards with other enforcement in that area. And the other thing to note is that at the start of this year, we had a number of outstanding tickets, and those tickets were taken to small claims court where I represent the city, and that resulted in us collecting on like 80% of those tickets. There were 2 people who no-showed, and a bench warrant was issued for their arrest. The court does not take kindly to wasting their time, so if you are issued a summons, you should appear. We are moving forwards with our collection. It's not, you get a ticket, you can ignore it. Your options are to pay it or dispute it. That's the process. Ignoring it results in collections being enacted. Any questions?
Awesome. Thanks for that, Sean. Go ahead, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I always have questions, Sean, so just be
that's okay.
prepared. So Sean, I mean, we have this good neighbor policy, which counts on the good neighbors to make a complaint of something they're not satisfied with. Could you confirm for me the perspective of how much of your work is about good neighbor complaints versus things that you initiate by what you see and hear yourself?
So I got the bylaw-driven service statistics in the report there. And so overall, we had 200 calls in the third period, or 220, and 54 of those were driven by me. So approximately 1/4 of our calls are ones for violations that I personally have observed while on patrol or in attending a residence for another matter, and I've observed a different infraction, that kind of thing.
Well, the reason I ask is because there is an abandoned vehicle down where I live, and I keep thinking, is anybody complaining about that? Is nothing going to happen? Should I complain? And I think as so anyway, if you're interested.
Let me know. Yes, yep.
Anyway, okay, all right, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councillor Royer, go ahead.
So, Sean, I've had a couple of incidents with two clients who had their fence disputes. There's been two fence disputes in the last within 6 months with my, and I'm just thinking to myself, I know neighbors have to get along, but you do a really good job trying to keeping the peace. But yeah, you do.
I try.
But the bottom line is, when neighbor does not cooperate, it just throws everything out the window. And I just don't know how to deal with things like that. I mean, I know they're supposed to get legal counsel, but at the end of the day, you still got a very unhappy neighbor at the end of the day.
Yeah, so unfortunately, in a lot of these situations, it does come down to the fact that it's a neighborly dispute. There may not be a bylaw infraction occurring. The complaint is outside of the scope of municipal bylaw. It could be a matter of harassment or something like that, which is a police matter. It's not something that I can deal with. Or if comes down to a fence dispute, they would need to hire a surveyor. That's not something that I can assist with. I can only recommend that they consult with a professional who is able to provide them with the advice that they require.
Further, council. So as things have evolved over the last while, Sean, kind of what is the numbers say one thing, but in terms of your time and effort, where are you spending the majority of that right now?
Primarily the complaints that are requiring the most attention are the ones that are falling under the Good Neighbor bylaw. A lot of those are unsightly premises files, things of that nature, which require a substantial amount of time invested in terms of notice period to the property owner, and then looking at our options in terms of what we can do with in the way of fines or compliance orders, or something that we bring to council for a nuisance property, to have that rectified through a motion through council. All of those require a lot of time invested in generating the reports and best way to move forwards.
All right, thank you for that. All right, appreciate the report. Thank you. We'll see you in 3 months.
Thanks.
Okay, next up, pardon me. We have an overview of notice on title regarding bylaw contraventions. Received. We failed to receive the report. We want to do that, council? I think we do. Councillor Cairns moves and Councillor McBain seconds. All those in favor? None. Thank you. Troy, you taking the notice on title, or? Yep, okay. So the motion on the floor is that council receive the overview report. Could I have a mover? Councillor McGuire, thank you. And Councillor Roberts seconds. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just want to thank Andy for his work on this report here, and Maurice as well, and her team that help in this process. We just want to give a bit of an overview as a kind of reminder for some and an introduction for others about the what we call the Section 57 notice on title. So this is a process we use, or a tool that we have available to us through legislation and the community charter to assist us in enforcing with building bylaw compliance and building code contraventions. And typically what happens here is it's where there's work that's been undertaken and a property owner may refuse to get a permit, or maybe has taken out a permit but refuses to follow through on the required inspections, or to follow up on other requirements related to that process. And usually there's months and months, sometimes years and years of back and forth to try to get compliance. And sometimes by request of the owner, or sometimes just by us, kind of running out of options and ways to get compliance, we'll recommend that we proceed with the notice on title process. What happens there then is the building official makes a recommendation to the corporate officer, and there's a formal letter from the corporate office to the homeowner to advise that this is coming before council and that they have an opportunity to be heard around that. And so sometimes some of those individuals will appear before council or submit something in writing, or sometimes we won't hear anything further from them. They'll be kind of anticipating that step. In pretty much every case, staff will be recommending that that council pass a resolution to authorize that notice to be registered on title. The occasional time there's, maybe they'll come up with a request for some extra time and a reasonable explanation of why that extra time is going to help them comply. Those are pretty rare, I think, but there's probably been a few examples of that in previous years. But either way, at the end of the day, we're hoping to see that notice on title registered against their title. And the main reasons for this is that it helps to make sure that if there's any potential change of property owners, or sometimes homeowners are working towards selling the property and maybe not going to disclose the issues to future owners, and that's one way for sure where the notice on title really helps with that. There could be other things around lenders and that kind of stuff as well that might be looking for that information, or that might, or insurers that might see some value in that information. Really, in the grand scheme of things, it's a way to help the city protect itself from liability claims. If it gets to the point where the homeowner has resolved the concerns, then it's quite simple for them to have that removed. They simply apply for a building permit to have the inspector come to the property and do follow-up inspection or inspections if multiple ones are required. And once it's confirmed that all of those compliance concerns have been addressed, then we simply proceed and to remove or cancel the registered instrument from their title. And so there's a fee involved at that stage, at that building permit stage. But up until then, there's no additional fee to the homeowner there. So I'll leave it at that for, actually just one other thing. So again, as mentioned, we're just kind of providing this overview of this meeting, and then at the upcoming meeting, we anticipate having a handful of these files to review, and we'll be able to work through a few examples of that. There's a few more in the queue that'll be coming behind that as well, but this is kind of the first few steps of that. So if there's any questions.
All right, excellent, Troy. Go ahead, Councillor Royer.
Well, let me get this straight. I just want to get clear in my head, because if somebody builds an addition to their home and there was no permit issued, there was no inspection done, and they get it all done, we have the right to have a order to destroy it, to completely dismantle it?
There is legislative authority to take that level of action. Yes, not under this section that we're referencing here. I mean, that's, I would think it'd be a pretty unusual example that it would get that far. Yeah. I mean, I guess depends on the scale and just the whatever. Yeah, I mean, this has more to do with, probably a project that we're aware of. They might be refusing to obtain a permit and do that. They might be refusing to acknowledge and accept a stop work order. We'd probably be coming to council much more quickly if there was something to that degree that was happening. Most of these, I think, are all examples where it's just been, some aspect of that project has been kind of left non-compliant for a while, and they're refusing to take any proper action on that.
Before they put their house on the market, they had to comply with all the conditions, and that's what you're asking to vote on this here.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't ultimately prevent them from selling a property or listing it for sure. What it does is it helps to increase the chances of prospective purchasers finding out about those
Right.
issues.
Right.
It can cause some challenges for a homeowner to sell their property if one of these is registered on there. It enables a buyer to certainly ask some questions about, what the situation is and what's going to be required to be resolved. In my own experience, I had an example of that in purchasing a property where found out about those issues and basically negotiated a lower purchase price, not a major amount, but enough that I felt was necessary to properly resolve the non-compliant items and have that addressed. So it's not that it ultimately prevents it, but it just helps to provide some protection to those prospective purchasers and puts a little bit more onus back on that homeowner to make sure they're doing what they're required to do.
Thanks for sharing, Troy. Appreciate that.
Further, go ahead, Councillor Donback.
I'd just like to say that this makes me quite happy with seeing how some houses are being bought and flipped. And maybe they're not taking all the proper procedures, and then young families are getting caught up in a house that is has the potential of being a money pit, I'll say, for lack of a better word. And at this day and age, to be able to afford to buy a house in town, when you buy one that's been all lipsticked up and hasn't maybe met all the proper criteria, I think this is a great safety feature for young people getting into the market today. So thanks for that.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor McGuire.
I just had a couple questions. What kind of fees are we talking about? What are those fees associated with for getting the, and like, what are we talking here? Like, is it just a normal building permit fee, or are we talking something that's legal that they would have to pay for?
Yeah, again, there's actually no fee to the homeowner to have the notice registered on title. There is a fee incurred by the city of the filing fees and everything with Land Titles Office. There is, however, a fee involved for them to request its release. So they need to obtain that building permit, and there's currently a $500 fee that's associated with that to make that request.
Thanks. And what exactly are we voting on today? Because like there's no actual, you haven't brought any of these to council today.
It's
That's
just
correct.
receipt of-
This is just for receipt of information and next
So it's just
meeting.
kind of letting us know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
Okay.
just a first chance to become more familiar with the process and ask any general questions. Yeah.
Got it. Thanks.
Unless something change, and we hear from one of the homeowner that they're willing to change anything, there should be 5 at next council meeting.
So we have so few of these compared, for example, to the regional district. Each board meeting, there are at least 4 or 5 or 6 of these that come forward from the various rural areas. Now, I appreciate that when you're out in the middle of nowhere, you kind of feel like you might be safe. But this is a really, really common thing out in the RD. Not so much here.
Couple of points to that is one is we do have a bit of a list of these that have been kind of put aside on the side burner for a little while. So we need to catch up on that. But on the other hand, I would agree. Again, I guess I should be careful. I'm not super familiar with how many the regional district has, but I think really part of that just has to do with our building inspection staff and the work they put in to seek and obtain compliance and work and communicate with those homeowners to get them through the process. But
Yeah.
inevitably, there's always a few holdouts that need to go through this process.
So I can say that homeowners, the vast majority, 95%, take this very serious. In fact, when homeowners get notice that it's coming to the board to put a notice on title, they're there as a delegation, basically pleading for more time to come into compliance. So the notice on title is a very powerful tool to use to get compliance. The other 5%, there's a whole bunch of reasons for that, but it is rare that it would go to legal. It's highly rare. I think in the course of a year, you have maybe 1 or 2 of those that would end up going to court for whatever reason. So it's a really effective tool.
It is a handy tool, and you're right. Sometimes getting to this next step is enough to spark some further action. Sometimes they get that letter from the corporate office, and that's enough to scare them into getting it done. And then sometimes just knowing that that's registered and the complications that can create for them, it's often it gets that resolved pretty quickly afterwards.
Yeah. Last comment? Go ahead.
So I just want to say thank you, staff, because a lot of people don't realize that when you build things to code, the insurance policy will not be nil and void. If you miss something on the code, they'll find a way to not pay out any way they can. So I just want to thank you guys so much. You guys are doing a great job.
So I should mention, kind of further to Kevin's comment, that this doesn't ensure that everything is to code in a house that's being sold. It only applies to changes or additions or changes to the home where a building permit is required. Right? When you have a building permit, you have, in addition to that, you have inspections that are required, to ensure that it's being fulfilled. So it's only on that new construction that this applies. Troy?
Thank you for the clarity.
Yeah, thank you. That's excellent clarification. It applies when there's been work that's been happening that would require a permit, whether it's new construction, renovation, whatever. There's lots of home renovations that can happen that don't require permits. There aren't specific code requirements necessarily, or other inspection requirements. Real estate investment is risky. Buying a home, especially if it's an older home, I mean, there can be all kinds of things. They're built to an older code. There's all kinds of newer requirements, but I mean, if someone's buying a home, they can submit a information request to find out permit history and do all that. There's private home inspectors that people can engage to undertake a home inspection of the property as part of that resale process and find out hopefully everything they need to know about that and what if there's any specific concerns. There's a host of professionals that can come and be involved in that as well, that a purchaser can hire to look into situations that way too. So
Thank you, Troy. All right, we call the question on receipt. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Next up, we have the snow and ice maintenance plan for the coming winter. We eagerly await this every year, Ryan. You're up this time. The motion on the floor is that council receive the snow and ice management plan as attached to the report. Councillor McGuire moves and Councillor Royer seconds. Go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I'm here to talk about our snow and ice management plan. As the winter is upon us, it's that time of year where we carefully go back, review the plan with our crews, and we consider opportunities for impactful adjustments to enhance our efficiencies. Also in this time, we assess the need for any new equipment that we might need or any lagging indicators to ensure that our plan remains effective and adaptable to the evolving needs of Kimberley and the community. In regards to the 2023-24 plan, I'd like to bring attention to a few new developments. While there are no major changes or major items that have been changed in the management plan, I'm going to highlight a couple of the key points, some that are outlined and others that are not outlined. First, as highlighted in the plan, our group has extended our plowing area in Forest Crown. This is to include the new subdivision, as they're already building out there. And next, we made a strategic decision in how we change our priority order for the ski hill on the weekends. We've transitioned our group to ensure our route is more impactful for the visitors to the ski hill on the weekends, as that's where the most of the traffic is. And it's just a one slight priorities changeover. So instead of town site first, it's the ski hill first. And then on the weekdays, we continue with town site first, ski hill is after that. We've also created some tweaks concerning how our units will complete our priority routes in certain locations. We've determined that some spots on our maps, when completed in different sequence, can maximize our response time by becoming a bit more seamless and can get more done. In regards to keeping our operator books up to date, we have also made a series of minor adjustments in regards to our one-way snow storage. which have changed due to completion of some of the construction around Kimberley, like Marysville and up Jim Ogilvy. I would also like to mention that we will maintain our focus on continuing to update our fleet. This has been a great success up to date. Some items worth of mention, we have a new skid steer. It was currently being built. They said that it's going to be ready any week now. So we're hoping to receive that soon to continue our work with the Rose Group. As well, we're looking at procuring a grader to replace our older unit 36, which is a increasingly aging out piece of equipment. This is going to give us a lot of extra life for our graders. I'd also like to take a moment to address the makeup of our crew. So over the past couple of years, we've experienced some staff changes resulting in new crew makeups. Currently, our crew consists of 12 roads operators, but in the last 2 years, we've welcomed half of these operators as new team members, and 2 have been with us for less than a year. This means that half of our crew have 1 snow season or less experience with the city performing the task. So this influx of new operators has led to a significant focus on our training and development. We're doing a lot of ride-arounds. We're making sure that they have an understanding of the books that they're seeing. We're making sure that they understand the routes and what is expected of them. I want to make everyone aware that there's this learning curve, but we are integrating these new operators, and we're hoping for you all to see that there's not going to be any hiccup in the services you've been receiving. As a new member myself, I'm currently in the process of familiarizing myself with our Kimberley winter operations, and I do appreciate your understanding and patience while I also transition with my new crew through the season. And collectively, we are committed to meeting and exceeding, hopefully, the expectations of this town. And I'm constantly looking at ways that I can improve moving forward. In closing, I anticipate that we may receive some snow and ice related concerns from residents. Again, I'd just like to point them in the direction of using Lightship, where they can go through our operations desk from the phone or from the Lightship app on the website. And it's the most effective way to ensure that all your questions, concerns are just properly documented, tracked, and acted upon by our group.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Ryan. Thanks, Ryan. And yeah, I think it's all very fair. Would be very fair for us. I mean, given that you're coming in here new, and Kimberley's got a lot of quirks, as I'm sure you are well aware of.
I've seen one.
And the odd person does complain about snow removal. So the only one thing I would suggest, I think the crews do a pretty outstanding job, given how difficult the job can be, and sometimes the timing of it. But my one thing does go to timing. And it relates to the snow hauling. We have one intersection in particular where Subway is there down by Timber Mart, where you've got 2 schools getting out or going to school at the exact same time, and it's not a great intersection for people moving around town. And it's one thing I see every year, and I always forget to complain about on Lightspeed as a resident. But I think just the timing of that one, where if you could have a staggered start to the snow hauling portion, in just the hours, like the 20 minutes when there's just a crazy amount of congestion in there, I think it would make a world of difference. One, from people complaining, and 2, just the disruption to the operators. I mean, really high traffic area, right? Like it's crazy, and it's just not set up well really for anything. So that's just a suggestion that I have, and it has nothing to do with the effectiveness of the hauling, the work the team is doing. It's really just down to timing, because I know you guys are limited to workday hours, but if there could be a staggered start or something like that, just
I have run across this in my previous where I worked before. Usually we've come up with strategies where we can work around the times. Like you said, it's a 20-minute window. We have 3 times a day where that is effective. It's in the lunchtime, morning, and the after school. Usually what we can do is we can actually just go back to the end and push forward and kind of capture it in the nearing the end. So there are strategies that we can implement, and I totally agree. I have kids in school. I don't want to be picking them up with hauling going on. So,
Councillor Dunneback, then Councillor Royer.
I guess I just have one concern with the Townsite Hill not being
Mhm.
done first with the fact that that's our healthcare clinic and the Pines is up there. And I feel that we need to have a safe thoroughfare there all the time. And if there's an opportunity that if we have 3 graders now and all 3 graders are going out to clean the hill, if one peels off and goes up and does at least 1 lap so that ambulance and fire department and all that stuff have a safe opportunity, rather than waiting all day when I've lived in both places. And to have at least 1 pass rather than none at all and have to wait all day seems like a little bit of a safety thing that maybe we need to address rather than focusing and switching from back and forth to like maybe sort of tying them in together where we'll be more efficient with a new grader, make more time, and then obviously come back and do a cleanup later. But just a thought anyways.
I 100% agree with that concern. Our priority route will not be impacting our graders, or it will just be our sander and 2 plow trucks for that early morning start on the weekend shift. But if we do need to require more operators, that will remain unchanged. We will not be swapping that out. That service will remain intact.
So as you go through your first winter, you'll be in a position to kind of make the observations and come
Absolutely.
back to us with changes that you want to make. Sure, there'll be a few. Councillor Royer.
So I must say I'm quite impressed how you handled the freezing rain from town site to Marysville. Nothing going on in Marysville, but after the SO whammo, it was like ice sheet and snow at town site. You sanded beautifully. I just want to give you a high appraisal, just so you know.
Did you drive that truck?
Um, sure. Yeah. Thank you very much.
So
Yeah,
a
fair.
couple things, Ryan. So the grader and the Bobcat, they will both be retired? Will they, or what happens to them?
So we're acquiring a brand new Bobcat. We actually put that in. That was to get purchased this year. It's just taken so long to get it built.
Sure.
The exchange. We're not actually retiring any piece behind that. It's actually just going to be finally we're going to have a piece which we didn't
Okay.
have before. The grader is from 1991. It's running close to I believe it's like 12,000 hours. It's down a lot. That would be ready for retiring after this.
Awesome. Yeah, those two are the last of the 1990s.
Yeah.
Or sooner. It'll be really good to see that get off. I think, the approach to fleet over this last number of years, I mean, these are tools that staff need to get the job done. They're productivity tools. And we've seen in the past, in particular with snow removal, where staff have waited a little bit too long to come in with a request that we need to either add or subtract. And I think it's really important that you come forward with your needs with regard to the fleet and also with the HR resources as well. If we don't know, we can't help. So just an open invitation to speak up.
Perfect. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Roberts.
You were very tactful there, Mr. Mayor. When we first started to gather the information for our asset management of that, we had a grader that was 47 years old.
That's it.
It spent a little time in the garage, actually. But it was, I mean, I'm looking at this and I think, oh my gosh, this grader's just a puppy. It's just like, anyway, it's good to see that we're getting out of the 90s.
Yeah, there was one winter, this goes back several years ago now, I guess had a lot of snow and we were having a terrible time keeping up with it and discovered that we were down a grader. We literally only had one grader on the roads and it had just a huge impact on, the ability to get the snow cleared. So the only other comment I will make is around windrows. This galvanizes criticism every single year. You would think after explaining it every year or however long that everybody would understand that, we don't deal with the windrows. And I would like to just, I guess, inform as much as remind council that about 3 years ago, council actually directed staff to do a cost analysis on what it was going to cost in order for us to to deal with the windrows at the same time as we're doing the grading. It was going to require additional manpower, additional Bobcat. The bottom line was an extra $300,000 a year, which is a 3% increase in taxes to deal with the windrows. And it was unanimously shot down that we've dealt with them for this long. We'll continue to deal with them and encourage people to look at neighbors helping neighbors, neighbors helping seniors, and those kinds of things that people do in a community like Kimberley. So yeah, we've buckle up. I'm pretty certain we're going to deal with questions about windrows again. Okay, call the question on receipt. All those in favor? That motion is carried.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ryan. Next up, we have the banking resolution for signing officers. So we have a couple of resolutions, 3 to be exact. The first is that banking resolution 2022-320 passed in November of 2022 be rescinded effective November the 14th, 2023, and that banking resolution for 2018-273 passed on November 5th, 2018 also be rescinded. Councillor McGuire moves, Councillor McBain seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? That motion is carried. And the last motion is that the signing officers authorized to execute banking transactions with the city appointed financial institution, which is the Royal Bank, be the mayor and councillors Roberts and Cairns with Jim Hendricks, Deputy Chief Admin Officer and CFO, Maurice Leroux, Corporate Officer, or Krista Waite, Deputy Chief Financial Officer, effective November 14th, 2023. Councillor McGuire moves, Councillor Roy seconds. Jim, housekeeping?
Strictly housekeeping, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just due to the recent change in staffing, we just needed to get an additional name on there in case we were short-staffed in the event we need to run a check.
Right, awesome. Questions? All those in favor? That motion is carried. Next up, we have the check run, or I guess, one check run in the amount of $1,597,268 and a few cents. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor McBain moves and Councillor Roberts seconds. Anybody like to point out any non-routines? Do we have any non-routines?
We do have a non-routine this week. $433,334.72 for our shiny new fire truck. I went to have a look at it. Apparently it's in the garage.
It is. Yeah, it is. The guys are pretty excited about it, actually. They came close to having to take air out of the tires to get it in the building. But that's another story that we'll deal with when we talk about facilities. Yeah. Okay, hearing nothing further, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Awesome. Correspondence. We have 6 items of correspondence this evening. The first 3 have been itemized as requiring action. Let's bring those first 3 in. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor McBain, thank you. And Councillor McGuire seconds. There are a couple of letters of support that are being requested. So let's deal with the first one. Aaron Knudsen, the Executive Director for the Columbia Basin Institute of Regional History, dated November the 2nd, and they're requesting a letter of support for a digital museums grant. Everybody's read this? Pardon me. Mover? Councillor Cairns moves. Councillor Roberts seconds. Any comment? All those in favor? That motion is carried. Next up, we have an email from Tim Chapman, who is the Program Manager for the Youth Climate Corps for WildSite, dated November the 8th, also requesting a letter of support for the Youth Employment and Skills Strategy grant application. Councillor McBain moves and Councillor Dunneback seconds. Conversation or comment? All those in favor? That motion is carried. And finally, we have an email from Amanda Burdett, the communications coordinator for the Okanagan Basin Water Board. This is not, I don't believe this is a letter of support. This has to do with the invasive mussels that have been found recently. There was a flurry of activity in the media on this, and I can tell you there's a flurry of activity both at the province and at Columbia Basin Trust for attention on this. I'm not sure that we have any specific action. There is a lot of action that's already been taking place. Any further comment? All right. All those in favor of receipt of those items, any opposed? The motion is carried. Pardon me. And finally, we have 3 items for information. Could I have a mover? Councillor McBain, thank you. And Councillor Royer seconds. Any comments? Hearing none, call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Awesome. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Sue.
There was the letter from Eddie Duke.
Right.
So I just wanted to comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I don't have a strong opinion of it. And I think sometimes that can actually create more confusion. I understand. I think it's, good points here around some clarification, but I think for myself, the main thing is not to confuse the chair in this person. So I wanted to mention natural gas, LNG, liquefied natural gas, or fossil gas, pulled out of the ground through hydraulic fracturing, fracking. So another term people use is fracked gas. And it's banned in many jurisdictions due to its effect on drinking water and public health. And because of the methane leakage, known as fugitive methane. And methane is a greenhouse gas that's 30 times stronger. Did I have that on? Yeah, 30 times stronger than carbon dioxide. And it's not currently tracked and reported in our greenhouse gas inventories. So it's, we have this sense that it's cleaner than coal, but now that we're having technology come online to bring us more data on that is being brought into question, and it produces carbon dioxide when combusted, which causes climate warming. So I just wanted to point out the characteristics of it, which I think is the important thing to keep track of, and I call it LNG because that's the term that people are most familiar with.
Thanks for the comment, Sue. Further, council? I think I just have one comment in reading through it, and I think intentions, intentions are always good, but I think we have to take a look at, kind of a context around some of this, especially as it pertains to us and our responsibilities as councillors in the municipality. And we don't control the lexicon. Many of these terms, like natural gas, have been around forever. There certainly are other terms that are being used, but it's the common usage of the name. And until the lexicon changes, we're in our lane by simply kind of staying within what the context is, regardless of kind of what the movement is outside of that for change. There are just certain things that are a slippery slope, as a municipality. An example, I guess, would be, this isn't a complete analogy, but an example I would use, I think, is the bylaw that we have that precludes us from declaring proclamations. And the reason we have that in place is that if you do one, you are really obliged to do all. And it would be, I think we would be remiss to think that every single proclamation request that comes to council is something that we would like to support. And what the bylaw does is not put it in our purview to make subjective decisions on these as they're coming forward. And so I think it's just really important on things like this that, we can observe, we can have a look at these things, but it's really important that we stay in our lane. Thanks for listening to that too. Okay, move receipt. All All those in favor? Beg your pardon. Any opposed? The motion is carried. All right, that is the end of what is a reasonably light agenda tonight. It has taken an hour, but I think we've had good conversation around everything that's been on the agenda. And I would like now to call on members of the public that have listened here this evening that may have comments or questions about anything that's been in the agenda here tonight to call in. And that number would be 800-741-7180. And the meeting number, when prompted, is 2770-985-3134. And yeah, your microphone will be muted until you're called on. So please call in now. And while we do that, I guess I would ask a couple of members of the public that we have here tonight. Anybody have any questions? We're good? Yeah. Yeah. Awesome, Tim.
One comment.
Like, for example,
Hey, hang on.
Flamethrower thing?
So make this quick because we could be here all night talking about snow removal.
Like the parking lot beside the well site. But I guess still.
Yeah. Thanks for the feedback, Tim. Appreciate it. Okay, we'll do a quick round on councillor matters. Steve, go ahead.
Couple things. We had the Halloween Howl up in town site in Marysville, and last year we were 200 hot dogs short, and this year we ordered next 200, and they didn't show up. So the Helping Hand Food Bank benefit. I mean, we dropped them off as one. And two, I was very, very pleased on the Taha meeting that we had at St. Eugene's. Great positive feedback from the council and Chief Pierre, is it? Yeah, Chief Pierre, yeah. Very impressive. And we're going to have some more meetings in the future. I'm looking forward to that. And I happened to go to the Senatap parade and get together at the vet. And all I can say is I was so impressed of the turnout and the weather. Like I thought it'd be like maybe a couple hundred people. It looks like half the town showed up. So I was very proud of Kimberly, seeing everybody was there at the Senatap. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Go ahead, Kevin.
I got to go to the AGM for the Trail Society, and I was pleasantly surprised with how well was organized. It was a casual meeting, beers to be had, which made it more comfortable, I guess, for everybody. I didn't have any, but the presentation was really well done, on point. They've really got something going there. They have, from age 18 to, I'm going to say 80. The room was full, and everybody's super excited about the trails that have been developed and what are being developed, and now I think going into more of a maintenance sort of setup, which is awesome. And it's just nice to see a society like that come literally from the dirt to now have, a bank account and to be able to gainfully employ. I think they had three people full time, pretty much, or like from spring to fall. Lots of pictures, video. It was just really inspiring to see. I look forward to working with them. So
Sounds like a good first meeting.
yeah,
Awesome.
I want to thank you
Yeah,
for
cool.
pointing that as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Jason.
Nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
Um,
Make something up.
What do you?
Actually, there probably is, but it's in camera stuff that we're not in camera, so he cannot divulge.
Oh.
I'll take you off the hook on that one.
Thank you.
Sandra, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Stephen stated, we had a wonderful meeting with the Tanaha and members of the board. I came away very hopeful. Our opportunities to find some common projects that we can work on together. I think it's one thing to go and have dinner and pay lip service to it, but I think the intent on both sides of our conversation was that we need to be a lot more constructive about what we're saying, and that we need to take this to the next level. Instead of just being neighbors, we have to find ways of working together. And also, I was also impressed with the turnout at the armistice celebration on the 11th. I know ever since they have had the new space, while the old space over by the gym 67 used to be very well attended. This opportunity for families to come out and bring their children, their little people, and all the little kids, and the Girl Guides, and the Brownies, and this little sports guides, and the Beavers, and now we had the hockey players there in front and center, and we had just every kind of or organization represented there in gay profusion, and in serious consideration of what they were there for. And I think we can be extremely proud of the fact that this memorial sits in the middle of our community, and thanks to the veterans who saw that potential. I had an American friend say to me one time, "Why did you put a graveyard in the middle of your city?" And I said, "Well, this is not a graveyard. This is a place where people go to remember, and it's the memories that all of those brought forward this week." So it was really special. Thank you, Mr.
Sandra.
Mayor.
Nicely said. Sue.
6th, I attended the Kimberley Nature Park Society board meeting, and there was, they have a lot of initiatives underway, have a new logo, they have new trail mapping and guide, and quite a few different projects that are all kind of in the air right now. So I won't get into all the projects, but there's discussion of developing a master plan as well. October 30th, attended the Kimberley Pride AGM. And on November 9th, members of the Mark Creek Watershed Committee met very informally with Bob Gray. That was in follow-up to our watershed tour because Bob wasn't able to join. He was ill at that time. So we gained more information on Bob's project, the Pacific Institute of Climate Solutions, East Kootenay Fire Modeling Project. And in particular, we're seeking some interim guidance for forestry operations. The focus is, what can we do before the fire comes? And watersheds are the highest priority. So we actually hope to have some outcomes from that project next spring. And there's a desire from the Watershed Committee to refresh the invitation to Tanaka to participate. So that's always been, the invitation has been there, but we were thinking that with new council and staff, there might not be the awareness that that is an open invitation. And then just key, in terms of actually getting this work and the wildfire risk reduction work done, what do we need? And that's a forest industry that's really reframed to manage forest fuel treatments. And we need markets for typically non-merchantable forest fuels. We talked about the district, Revelstoke district heating and other uses, bioenergy. I think that's it on the watershed piece. Oh, and I'll mention November 16th, so that's Thursday this week, there's an important information session for elected leaders on electricity planning for decarbonization. It's hosted by the Community Energy Association and the BC Municipal Climate Leaders Council. And I'm on the Municipal Climate Leaders Council, so have been kind of in the loop on that piece. So BC Hydro will be presenting on work underway to meet the increasing demand and to respond to questions. So it's a really important piece. There's been a lot of questions raised, of course, around what is, our ability to meet future demand as we decarbonize. And so I'll send out that information. I know it's already been sent out once by our planning department, but I'll just recirculate it in case people don't have the registration information handy. And so that's 1 hour on Thursday, a webinar. And then I attended a presentation by the Business Council of BC. It was to all BC mayors, and it was also available at UBCM, and it was on the costs of BC's climate policy, the economic implications. I was surprised at that session. It didn't consider climate change nor the low carbon economy that we're transitioning to. It only modeled the decline of fossil fuels. Anyway, it was, after reading public policy economists' review of it, it points out that the analysis it compares a world with the Clean BC plan in place to one where climate change is not an issue. So it actually leaves a huge part of the story out. So yes, important piece to be able to attend the other side of the information, which is the November 16th session, addressing Clean BC targets through decarbonization. So that's it for me.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Woody.
Yeah, I don't have any major report, but I was I enjoyed our meeting with Come last week, and look forward to future opportunities to work together to just to create projects that we're both working on, and to support each other. And what else? Yeah, I've got a chamber meeting coming up next week, and that's about it.
Awesome. Thank you. A couple of things just to go over. This last 10 days or so, a fair amount of my time was taken up kind of dealing with the change in command for the chief admin officer. Nothing difficult, but lots of detail. And I want to thank Jim for agreeing to step in and lead the charge here for the next 4 or 5, 6 months, whatever it is, until we have an announcement for a new CAO. I also had a meeting with the resort municipalities, the other 13 of us, with regard to basically MRDT and RMI strategies. We need more money. We're looking for more money, and we are putting a case together for the tourism minister on exactly what we need and why they should give it to us. I attended the housing announcement. That was last week, I guess, at the beginning of the week. And it was the one that talked about planning and zoning and basically densification. I'm getting a bit of a deja vu. I feel like I've talked to you about this already. In the event that I haven't, I will say that Kimberly was specifically referenced for our bylaw, kind of the 1850 amendments and updates that we've done. And in addition to Victoria, Vancouver, and Kelowna, we were one of the municipalities mentioned as being ahead of that curve. And basically, the 4 of us plus Auckland, New Zealand were the reference cases for what was being brought into legislation. So yeah, we were definitely ahead of the curve on this one. And it was, it was a proud moment to see Kimberly up on the slides. Yeah, it was pretty awesome. Pardon me. The RDK meeting was last week, the monthly meeting. In addition to, I guess this is just a bit of a heads up, as we're moving into the budgeting, RDK are also moving into budgeting, and they will be proposing a fee increase for participation in the planning services group. Jim and I will be following up with that on how reasonable that might be for our community. Unfortunately, all of these fees that the RD charges are all based on assessment. So each community is, the fees are charged based on what our assessment is. And of course, our assessment has been going up significantly over the last couple of years. So in addition to an increase that's being proposed, it's based on that assessment. And I think we're going to have to do a little bit of negotiating with the RD on that one. So stay tuned for that. Kudos as well. You've already mentioned Remembrance Day, Armistice Day. Military Aims did an awesome job with the program over the weekend, and it was actually the snowfall that happened during that ceremony was actually awesome. It was really, really pretty. Created a really just a cool environment with all the folks and all the kids and everything that were down there. Kind of the moment for me through that whole thing was when Kyle was going around with the microphone and everybody had an opportunity to say, you know, my dad served, Glenn McCormick, Navy, that kind of thing. And at the very end, he came around and this little guy that was no more than probably 6 or 7 years old, kind of blurted out on the microphone that his great grandpa was in the war, and that was all it was priceless, absolutely priceless. Yeah, and a couple of comments. So on the watershed committee thing, I'm sure they've talked about this, Sue, but the watershed committee is actually a committee of the provincial government, not the city of Kimberley. Our guy chairs the meeting, but it's a provincial government committee. So kind of their request to bring the Ktunaxa forward is going to have to go back through the provincial government. It's not something that kind of we or the committee can kind of deal with, just in case you were unaware of that. And Kevin, KTS and the Kimberley Nature Park, Sue, these folks are true enthusiasts. I mean, they epitomize the term enthusiast for what it is they do within both of those organizations. Yeah. Yeah, and it's the same thing with the nature park folks. I mean, the level of commitment. Yeah, no, the level of commitment that they have, and it's not just the leadership; it's the entire organization is amazing, and it's one of the reasons why those amenities are tier 1 amenities that we have here. It's pretty awesome. Okay, enough said. I don't know what it is on items where it's light. We take up the same amount of time as when we have items that are heavy. But as I said, I think we've had good conversation around the table tonight. So thanks, Council, for all of the participation. Move to adjourn. Thank you, Councillor McBain and Councillor Dunneback. Seconds. All those in favor? The motion is carried. We're done. Thanks, everybody, for listening in as well. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Good meeting.